are, and I'm just gonna keep going. Whether my internet happens or not, I'll just keep going as if everything is totally fine. Let me move this down a little bit. It looks like... Where's the chat thing? 1 second. There we go. Nope, that's not the chat thing. Where's the chat thing? This one? Nope. Okay. It went away anyway, so we're good. Welcome back, welcome back. Now, what we're gonna do is pretty much frame up this place. I've been titling this video as framing this factory for a while now, and it looks like it's almost about ready. We have our builder's bell, gotta strike it for good luck, and I think we even have a decent amount of treasures from earlier, because we were raiding... Yeah, there we go. We were raiding the crypts a couple times. Welcome back, Crypt, or welcome back, Kit says. Yes, welcome, welcome. I have to deal with unfortunate things sometimes, and I'm just gonna accept it. And what I've been figuring out is the practical things that are going on in this, so to speak, factory. We have our area here, and we also want it to be viewable from the path. So I've been keeping all of this in mind, but for now, I'm making the output area for the conveyor belt. So we had to redo the floor a little bit here, and that's what I was in the middle of doing before I started noticing and paying attention to having internet problems. But for now, I'm gonna forget about that and act like there are no internet problems in Valheim and talking about it regardless of what's going on. So that's probably the attitude I need to take. I have to work with what is available to me and make a YouTube channel that pays a bit of my rent and teaches people about Valheim. And I think I can do it. I just have to figure out the logistics of that. And live streaming is an important part of it. I need to live stream so that I can play test, so that I can attract people to the server, so that I can teach people who already play on the server kind of more about the mentality of why things are that way in the first place. Because obviously when something happens to me, I can explain like if it's supposed to happen or not. I know, right? Whereas when something happens to another player, they don't know if it's purposeful or not. And they could just think that like I wanted that when it was actually an accident. And there's a lot of stuff on Path of Magic that is complete accident. Like this server, I would say, is 50% accident. I just roll with the accidents. And sometimes like an accident is good and you can turn it into a feature. Other times an accident is a big problem and you have to fix it. But I'd say it's helpful just as often as it is hurtful. So let's see, that looks oddly. Ah, I see, okay. This kind of nonsense, right? Like it looks so nice, but let's just act like, yeah, there we go. We're just gonna act like that's finished and how it's supposed to be. I'll deal with that a little bit more later. For now, this is the output of the belt. And I personally like having areas of visibility to the outside, but here, I'm thinking maybe some kind of arch or something. Because this is going to be a working area, and if there's Draugr archers out there, then the person working shouldn't have to deal with the Draugr archers. So if I were to leave this open, the Draugr archers would just shoot the person, and we don't want that. Instead, we're going to go with some kind of system here, and then we have to ask ourselves, this storage is obviously not in an ideal spot. I mean, it looks pretty, don't get me wrong, it's pretty, you know. Really, it would need to be like maybe this long, and then it'll be able to accommodate almost everything. Right now, there's a couple things missing. But that obviously also needs to move. And these things, I guess for visibility's sake for now, I can just move them. But you see, we actually have a lot of real estate to work with here. And this will be some kind of kitchen area. So probably this will have like some kind of thatched roof. Not thatched roof, what's it called? This stuff. Yeah, the shingle roofs, maybe a wooden structure. Whereas over here, this is going to be more like a castle kind of look. Like, this is almost what I'm going to be going for. Like this kind of, this one part here. sort of, that's the look I'm going for. Like maybe 3 or 4 of these jutting out to make a silhouette of like an abstract kind of castle theme kind of thing. I don't know if I can, I should make some way that I can just draw on the screen, like in paint, and you'd see it easily. I guess I do have a way to do that. Actually, 1 second here. I can do it this way. We're gonna use snipping tool. And then I'm gonna take this. There we go. And I'm gonna change it to desktop. Boom. And so now you see me with a screenshot of there, right? So sort of what I'm going for with silhouette is like there will be castle themed parts, right? So there's one castle themed part here. We need another one to make up for this tallness of the structure here. So that kind of demands that there be one here, basically. I know this looks like shit. I apologize, but this is how I make it work. So there's going to be one here. And then to go with the profile, we need to basically make this rest of it castle-like, but with a smaller profile than up here. And that'll free us to maybe make one part of it later up there that is like that. But for now, we won't have that. We're just gonna have the castle element here. This will turn into another one, and then this will be like the wider floor. It'll look more like a wall, if that makes sense. The actual silhouettes will come from these extrusions coming from up above. That's right, I need to change this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so do we have enough stone? That's the other question. Because, well, I know I have more than 14 stone. Let's see, we have, how much stone do we have? Oh, we barely have any. Okay, so I'll need to buy some more stone. That'll be reasonable, though. I'm pretty sure. I know what we can do. We can start smelting, because I actually have a bunch of iron that is all ready to be smelted, and in theory, we'll just go where we need it to go. So we're going to turn on the conveyor belt, and I don't need to do another crypt, don't worry. I've already shown you guys enough dark, dreary crypts and death loops. Instead, what we can do is go up to the cart that I looted earlier off stream, and this has metal from the crypt. So we can take all the metal, and then we can just toss it here. What was that? Normal serpent, okay. As long as it's not a bone maul, that's fine. In general, on Path of Magic, you do... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You bastard! As soon as I saw him, I was like, he's probably gonna kill me. How did he not kill me? Oh, he missed. That's funny. Okay. See now, because I moved the builder's bell from earlier, and I could have just struck it. Okay, okay, okay. Calm down, Mr. Ray. I guess I should. I'm gonna go find the builder's bell now. You see why you need a builder's bell on Path of Magic? I'm also trying to build like in the swamps, obviously, which is not ideal. Don't kill. No, 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 no. Those wraiths. Yeah, it's true that the conveyor foreman is strong, but he's always getting ganked by that. Always getting ganked by it. All right, there we go, we're good. So now they're going away, and we can actually throw the iron in a reasonable place where it's gonna end up back in the system. We good? You gonna go away now? Yeah, I love seeing that. Oh, it's just so funny, to be honest. It's so funny. All right, now where's the rest of our nonsense? Why do I have so much weight? Huh. I guess it's because I still don't have a messenger wood belt or whatever it's called. That thing is pretty much required. So now all of those will be smelting. And then that's going to lead to iron coming out here. Well, if I actually set it up properly. So let's find myself an iron bar somewhere. Bound to be one. Here we go. Got our iron bar. we just need to place one iron bar up here. So let's get rid of some more of this nonsense. Instead of filtering for coal, it's going to filter for iron bars. And blood sacks. Which obviously isn't that necessary, but you can see how, I mean, I'm using this system for a forge, right? But you could make like an area where you fight monsters on top of a conveyor system, and then all of the resources from fighting those monsters just automatically like goes through a complicated system and gets sorted, you know? It looks like we do, oh no. I swear, I saw iron bars fall on the floor here. But then it's like it knows it's not supposed to do that, and it's like, never mind, and it takes them back and then puts them out here. I don't know how the Surdling cores are there, but the iron's there, that's what counts. So then all the other nonsense will just end up over here, right? So this, it looks like, is our excess scrap iron. So it just gets dumped like this. I feel like it'd be good to have a little staircase down in this case, but I don't have that because this is on water level. So probably instead what we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna stop this ramp. You see how it goes down here? That is purely beneficial so that you can see the stuff going by here. So basically I can make it go down so you see the conveyor stuff, and then out of the frame it goes back up because then it dumps down further, and I found that it's just more appealing if the conveyors go up high and dump down. There's something about the way that it fills things up that is just like highly amusing, to be honest. In this case we have it a little further down, but we don't actually need it to be that way. So here, let's set that up. We're gonna turn the conveyor off because at this point it has conveyed most of the stuff into the forges, or the smelters rather, so they're all hard at work. And we can take some of this extra scrap iron that didn't make it through the system. It looks like approximately 84 of it was excess. So we're just going to dump this excess scrap iron back on the entry feed for the belt. That way it's all gonna go through, and then boom, there we go. And it'll cycle back, but there's no need for the belt to be on right now because all of the smelters are on. And once they're on and loaded, that's pretty much most of the benefit. So now we're gonna go back to our conveyor foreman. Let's move this cart out of the way. Keep talking about clearing things, but then I have all this nonsense everywhere, right? So here we are. Let's park this, I'd say right there. That's probably fine. I said that's fine, Mr. Cart. Don't be so clean. All right, hey, here we go. Getting some feng shui flowing here. And we're gonna make this go up just a little bit, purely because it looks cooler. And honestly, I might even make it line up here. I'd say that's a good idea. Yeah, all right. We're gonna take this second part of the loop out, and we're gonna see if it likes turning and going up at the same time. What was it? It was roof goes up, stairs go down, roof goes up. Yeah, roof goes up. In this case, I want up again, so I'm gonna use the roof thatch 45. But this time, instead of making it go straight, we're actually going to angle it like this. Did I not turn on build mode? Ah, yeah, I forgot build mode. Here we are. Yeah, we're just gonna angle it from here over, like that. And then it's gonna start going at an angle that's more appropriate to this area. So ideally, what we want is basically one more of these things. So let's see if this works. We can go like this. Here we go. Hey, you know, I feel like I'm going through the rite of passage because now I get spammed more by like Discord bots and people selling art in these things. I guess that's something everyone has to deal with, you know? Yeah. All right, I can already feel it. The conveyors, yeah, they're satisfying when they drop stuff down. Like, it's almost like the further it drops, the more fun it is. So we're making the little output house here, and we can make a little area if we wanted to. But for now, there's this like inconsistency there that looks really ugly. So I'm just going to hide it because that's easier than actually rebuilding it properly, right? And what we're gonna do is just have basically a simple pattern here. Nothing too crazy. And it's just gonna go like this. And this is gonna be a work area, so I'm gonna sacrifice the visibility of this lovely view and make sure that whoever's working here is safe, right? I don't know what's up with that rock. There we go. All right, so now that all clips in. I see, I was clipping into that earlier. That was the problem. I guess I don't need that really, do I? I can finish the illusion. There we go. That looks more detailed, so to speak. Okay, so the conveyor is going to output stuff, and it's just going to fall right here. So what we need is like just a little kind of guideline that conveying stuff is here, I would say. So why don't we use some fancy wood, because we got 400 tar, so much of that. Because the fancy wood is a little bit more obvious, right? It's like stained. And we're going to go with there, and I guess here as well. That works, right? Yeah, we got 1.5 units, so we can basically place it on both sides. And so the extra stuff will just pull down here. And actually, instead of making it like that, I'm gonna just make this full. And it's not perfectly aligned, but that's okay. I'm not too concerned about it. That's good enough for now. So now if we were to turn the conveyors on, notice how all of the smelters have continued on with their efforts. So we're gonna turn off conveyor and turn the normal one back on. But we're also gonna go around and add coal. So we have loads and loads and loads of coal. So we can just fill this up from the nearby chests. And may as well start replenishing the coal supply, to be honest. Because at this point, I've used like probably like 500 coal in the past like 2 hours of playing. And the reason we have so much of it is because the kilns get overfilled. If you fill them with one wood near a conveyor foreman, then they get overfilled. And you basically get 99 coal for free. That's just a mechanical incentive to get people using the conveyors, pretty much. So that stuff will go over here. It'll get dumped down. Look at this. You see what I mean? Like, it's just really amusing. I love seeing the metal just pour out of the thing. It's so funny. And it works surprisingly well. I mean, look at that. Didn't even miss anything yet. Which is almost, I'm shocked actually. That I expect it to miss things on occasion. So, look at this. Look at all of this iron. And you notice that, right? How like I literally was base building. All I did is put things in the right place, and then I can turn the conveyors off. And then like I do my thing, and while I'm doing it, everything's loaded, right? So you don't have to manage that anymore. And it's finally gotten to a point where it's actually faster to do it this way. Whereas before, because I didn't know how to use the conveyors and there were still things to iron out, yeah, there was a lot of playtesting that was still necessary. But now we have it functioning, it's genuinely working. We have builder's bells in a more reasonable position. And even the floor, like, I don't know, this floor over here looks pretty nice. To be honest, it looks quite nice. Not to toot my own horn. I like how I just like the simplicity of things sometimes. So there's something about an alternating pattern that I don't know, like it makes me feel good. And then I get to this and it's like, oh, what is this? I'm insane. Here? Nah, I'm all organized. Look at this. Yeah. All right. What we're going for now, patched up this area. This is acceptable. It's functioning. I guess for like flavor, we could add a tiny little change here. I'm just gonna take some of the stone here. And what I'm gonna do is make it so there's a little archway. But first, we need one of these, I'd say. Probably about here. Yeah, that seems reasonable. We're just gonna make a very, very basic arch. Yeah, you know, that seems lame, to be honest. It's kind of too small. So maybe if we, it's not symmetrical, so I don't really know how to make it look alright. But what if we do it like this? We're gonna start with this outside bit here. And then, I guess instead of the way we were handling it before, it's gonna be like this. And then we're gonna go out one higher. Plop. There we go. And now we're gonna try our arch thing. After I fix my hammer, of course. There we go. Boom. Okay, so we're just gonna go like this. I'm actually gonna move that one because now I remember why I didn't like the arch before. Because I like it when they're bigger. They like clip into each other a little bit. So probably here we're gonna do it like that. Although these aren't lined up, so fuck it. We're just gonna go that way. Alright. It's not the best, but it's good enough for me. Good enough for me. I just wanted something there. So obviously, now the conveyor, like, well, the simplest way to fix this would be to center the conveyor so that it actually does that, right? But then I'd have to deal with the angles down there, and I'm gonna deal with that later. For now, I'm just gonna accept that the conveyor is off-center. But the area actually functions. And then we still get to keep our little view of the conveyor from here, you know? And obviously you could get shot by an archer in this spot, which is not ideal. But you could also shoot the archer in that spot, so we'll see how it goes. That set up, we have our handy-dandy area over here all set up. This workbench is excess, don't need that. Looking solid, so we have some functionality here. Speaking of Draugr archers, hello there. Maybe I should actually fight this one. I have the stuff to fight him properly. Crazy, powerful frost arrows. You see how absurd they are? It's almost like you have to shoot them behind the enemy so that your stuff doesn't get nerfed too much. Let's see if I can manage that. Ah, no, I got him. It even hurts stone, though. Crazy, right? Really does a number. Alright, so that's set up. We have all of our iron here. I should probably put this away. And I guess logistically, the next thing would be, well, there's going to be a bunch of metal coming out of this. So where do we store the metal in a way that's convenient, right? I guess we could make a barrel right here. I just have to be careful that these aren't interrupting. Makes sense? So maybe instead of the barrel, we're gonna use a reinforced chest. It is like the metal area anyway. But now I have a problem of the builder's bell being right there. So maybe we put the chest kind of behind the builder's bell. We could put it something like this, right? And so we can act, oh no, the builder's bell hitbox covers it. So that doesn't really work. Let's see, I guess instead, I have these platforms all set up, right? So instead of that way of handling it, for now let's just put a chest right here. And we're gonna put the heavy stuff in it. But what we're gonna work on instead is moving this setup. It was just this way to illustrate the concept for me earlier. Now, I can make it more like this one, where it just outputs it and then it falls onto the ground. Notice that that leaves up that space, right? Because this strategy, we lose this hitboxable area. So what we're gonna do is remove these extra things. And there's so much extra stuff here that it'll probably be easier for me to actually just replace the splitter itself. So I'm gonna go this way, and let's, for good measure, just, you know, give another builder's bell a wallop here. And we're gonna go close to that splitter, but I need to make sure I'm not close to the other one. So I guess the best thing to do here is to go up onto the splitters so I can get over there this way. It's like parkour. And then we go up here. Uh-oh. How did you break the game, Val? Were you killing oozes that created oozes that created oozes that created oozes? Oh. Here we go. Let's see. I was actually curious because I noticed you've been dying a couple times, and normally these days you don't actually die that much. So you must have gotten yourself into a situation. Now I'm curious what happened. Alright, remove splitter. I got where I needed to go. So now we were able to remove this, and I can get rid of some of this excess stuff here before. There we go. Let's fix the floor. You know, that's like classic builder's mistake, right? You go too far back. So oozes. Oozes made oozes made oozes made oozes. I wonder why. That was probably already a thing, but I guess the oozes, when they're starred, I guess they make more oozes. I didn't even know that was a thing, in all honesty. I thought that they made the same amount of oozes, and I can see how, yes, I just made a problem because I upgraded the star level of swamp monsters, so the oozes would have all gotten to be 2-starred when they were 1, and that probably yeah, created a situation that I'll have to deal with. But that's really easy to deal with, actually. Let's see, so Constev says, does the bridge from the initial camp that leads to the Black Forest lead to the swamps too? Yes, it does. It does, actually. Oh, Rack and Spracket is talking about the tar monsters, not the plains oozes. Oh, they recreate themselves, huh? So that's probably the teleporter messing up. It's spawning new ones. Very interesting. I'll look more into that when I finish this building thing. But Constebs is asking about the bridge from the initial camp on Path of Magic. And yeah, that bridge is the beginning of the Path of Magic. So the Path of Magic is like one big, wide path that you can follow, and you can imagine it like an artery. It's the main path. You follow that, you end up eventually in every single biome in the game. So if you go off of that path, it's very easy to get lost. But if you stay on the main path, yeah, you would actually eventually get to where I am. You would come down this staircase, although it would have been quite a trek at that point. And you can't just run down the path. Well, at least I don't encourage people to do that. You can explore the path and stop and get a checkpoint, so that if you die or something happens, you don't have to run down from the very beginning of the path. Running down the path itself is totally fine, and I encourage people to do that. The thing is, like, you shouldn't just keep running. You should, like, stop at bases and set a spawn along the way. Otherwise, like, something nefarious is gonna happen, and then you'll have to redo the whole entire run. So just get in the habit of, like, going into existing bases and setting spawns there. It's really common on this server. Everybody is, like, doing that, so no one's gonna get mad at you for, like, putting a bed in their base or whatever. Like, it's fine. You can do that, not a problem. So here, I'm gonna remember, we're placing the splitter again, just as an easier way to manage it. And it looks like there's 1, 2, 3. So the splitter goes right there. Let's get out of its way. Boom. There's our splitter. It's all set up. Boom. So now we can more easily manage it, right? Because now we can place our chests just underneath here. And I think because it's not a barrel that it'll work. But I don't know, actually. Maybe it looks at container instead of barrel. But this chest, hopefully these chests aren't going to ruin everything. But they could ruin everything. But for now, I'm going to assume it works. And I'm just going to put all of the metal and stuff in here. And hope for the best. And all we need is 1 iron up here. Just that way. There we go. 1 iron. Boom. Nice. That's looking good. And then this one is set. Wait, what happened? What happened to the... Wasn't there a belt there? Like, I swear there was a belt there. What happened to it? Did it get removed? Am I tripping? What? What? Okay. I guess I just remake this one then? Seems like the fastest way to do that. I don't know how that belt vanished. But let's see. And I'll help out Bal's situation in a moment, actually. Well, I'll probably do that after the stream, because I have to get on the other character to do that. Basically, I made an infinite loop by mistake when you fight a certain monster. So, yeah. The monster dies and spawns more of itself, or it attacks and spawns more of itself. Something like that happened. Let's see, we have 1, 2. We want it to be as far away as possible, right? So that means this is going to go basically right here. Oh. Ah, we actually made it a little further away this time. Is that going to work? Ah, yeah, it's fine. Okay, there we go. So now we actually have this thing. I don't know why it disappeared. And you can remake it, but I found that it doesn't work as well when you remake them that way. So here we are. We have our chests. Okay, now the moment of truth is to actually test it. So what ends up getting filtered? Coal, iron, scrap. I guess iron scraps ends up over here, so we can test this by putting iron scraps in there. Wait, where'd the iron scrap go? Am I blind? I swear I picked up iron scrap. Did I not get... What? 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 I'm so confused. Is it here? I feel like it's not here. I don't know what happened to the iron scrap that I just picked up. Did it get into a smelter or something? That's so weird. Alright, well, I don't know what happened there, so I'm just going to just leave it be. This has the iron bar in it, so... And wait, you see this now? You see this? Wait, what? I'm not sure. Oh, I think I understand. Oh. I see. So when I use the remove splitter, it's targeting the exit piece from the other splitter nearby as well. I mean, it must be, because if you saw how I recreated the problem, right? I removed this, and then it removed that one's belt, right? So I'm just gonna look at where the belt starts in the machine and just replace it. Try and do it in the right spot. Not sure how to go about doing that though. Let's see. It's crazy, right? How you can literally get inside the machine and like I have to do something with the machine itself, right? It's kind of funny. So we can see that it's about half a meter up. That's a hard thing to duplicate. So I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be smart here. And instead of doing it one by one, which is what's causing the problem, we're going to we're going to fix the splitters both at the same time by getting rid of both of them and then placing them one by one. Make sense? I guess I can just be inside it when I do it this way. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. And there's some scrap iron. Awesome. Now we'll just replace each of these and line it up properly. Although here we can already see, what's this about? Interesting. That is not ideal, to be honest. So these belts aren't actually lined up with each other. Oh, okay, I'm glad I found that, because it causes like accumulation problems, because the belts, like, yeah, most of the time it's gonna fall off and work, but not all the time. So what we're gonna do is re-feed the belt through this area, if that makes sense. But for now, let me catch up on Concept's comment. So Concept says, I think I might start a new character after I finish building the dock. I would like to experience the world from scratch. It sounds challenging. It certainly is challenging, that's for sure. One thing about Path of Magic is it's like really up to you to like determine your own progression, because there's gonna be situations on the server where other players or other bases are further progressed. And for me personally, I enjoy it more if like I'm around that stuff, but I still go through with my own progression, if that makes sense. So if you find that you're able to do that, then you'll probably have a great time on Path of Magic. But some people, they're too bothered by like finding stuff. Like, let's say you get a Staff of Fracturing early on in the game. Like, if you're the kind of person who can be like, you know what, I don't want to have that yet, I'm gonna get rid of it, then you're likely to have a really good experience on Path of Magic. Whereas if you're the kind of person who like really needs it to progress in the way that you can anticipate, you're gonna be confused. So Path of Magic, it's not for everybody, but I just want to make sure that when people play, they know sort of what to expect, because that way they get a better sense of like how to play it, if that makes sense. But really, like, I don't even know all the kinds of people who like Path of Magic. You know, it's still a work in progress, and like, for me, what it does in a really major way is allow me to like make Valheim last longer for me personally, because normally I get like bored. I notice the patterns in the exploration, and for me, Valheim sort of loses. Yeah, for me, Valheim was the most magical. Well, before, now it's very magical because of EWP, but if I talk about vanilla, then pretty much Valheim lost its magic for me once I realized the patterns that make the biomes. Once I learned the different locations, once I'd seen Grey Dwarf spawners. I remember a specific moment actually where I was looking around in the Black Forest and it felt like a huge Black Forest that I don't know about, that there's a bunch of mystery in, and like, oh, maybe I'll find like a Grey Dwarf town or like a Grey Dwarf village, or where are these guys even coming from? Like, are there, you know, it was this mysterious feeling. But then I find Grey Dwarf spawners and I'm like, ah, okay, so they come from those. And then from that moment on, every time I see Grey Dwarves, I know that they either randomly spawned around the character or they came from one of those spawners. There's no more mystery. There's no more thinking that maybe there is some, you know, big Grey Dwarf city I can find, or like a Grey Dwarf village. You know, no, none of that can happen now because I know that it's not there. And that's the problem. Like, there's certain things that are too simple. So the player learns the systems, and then they're able to predict that something won't happen, and they stop having fun. They stop feeling like it's a epic adventure that could lead to anything. So when you play Path of Magic, kind of keep in mind that, like, for me personally, that's what I'm going against. I'm trying to make it very unpredictable, but in a way that is enjoyable, which obviously is tricky in practice. because people don't really respond well to unpredictability, to be honest. So it's kind of one of those catch-22s, right? Where like you need to do something to make something work, but at the same time, the act of doing that will also alienate others in certain ways. So as with many things, it is all about the balance. Let's see, stairs go down, roof goes up. Oh, look at that. First, I'm actually getting the hang of this. I am getting the hang of this here. So now I'm gonna try and also correct the previous problem, which is that the belt basically goes a little bit too far and it doesn't output in a central way. But that's gonna be challenging because probably in order to do that, this part here had to be further out. So let's see, how am I gonna handle it? This could go more, but maybe I'll just accept that the belt's a little off kilter. Or maybe I can do a trick and make it work. Let's see. Because technically, these don't have to be lined up perfectly. So I could do something like this, right? Where I offset it a little bit, and it should still work, right? Like if I do that, and then let's do that one more time, I'll offset it again. Then maybe I'll be able to tilt it just enough to line back up there. But let's see, this goes down and then it needs to go up one and be tilted again. So I need that snap point there. So I think instead of just that gap, we're actually gonna do 2. And I'll handle that this way. So I make it that like that. And then we're gonna make one more gap here. I need to get out of the way. And it's gonna be a little bit more extreme, right? And then that's gonna make these pieces. So now it goes a little bit to the side. I have no idea if this is gonna work, but it should actually get us into the position we need to be in. So we're gonna go with the stairs. Stairs go up, roof goes down. No. Stairs go down, roof goes up. I should have known. I had it right the first time. I shouldn't have pressed my... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I heard the noise. Oh. The freaking wraith noise. Oh, gosh. Leave me alone. Constev says, I agree with you. After the last no map, no portal run, my friends have lost their interest. We killed Fader twice, found all 3 pieces of the flaming sword, and then nothing to do further. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the... Valheim is a board game. Like, that's the way to think of it, really. That's how it's developed. So, like, if you want it to function differently on your server, you have to change, like, the actual mechanics of the game itself, because it's working against you, so to speak. It is actively trying to get the players to move forward in a way where they're gonna lose interest faster, you know? And obviously, I don't want to come off as me saying like this is Iron Gate messing up. I definitely don't look at it that way, because they, like, I mean, they started with the game, right? We can play their game and learn about things from doing that. But one moment. All right, I'm back. Let's see. So this piece has to be tilted, right? And then we use the forward pieces. But you can see that even with the offset I used here, it didn't actually make that much of a difference because we're still not centered on this piece. So I think actually what I have to do is do one more of these kind of offset pieces here. And this is really going to test the limits of it, because if it works, we know for sure that you can kind of be a little finagly with the conveyors, right? So we just do it like that, and then we're going to get rid of that second piece there. And now when we make our roof, or our ramp rather, I think it'll work, because we just need to go up. Oh, and now look, yeah, we overcompensated, so Now I went too far that way. Working with angles. It's such a pain, right? Alright, so basically, I'm like half too far. I see, because there's two forces going on right now. There's the angle of the rotation, basically, because we moved it up. And that makes it closer. Ah, that's not working. I'm trying to like do it the other way, but it wasn't working. So what we need to do this time is make it so that the bell is basically like this. Not that far. Instead, it's going to be... Oh, you know what? Maybe just adding the forward was enough to get it to swap. Let's see. Might be, because we actually extended it forward, right? And then we used a different point here, and that changed the angle, the entry point, basically. So let's use the right roof. There we go. Yeah, see, now we're talking more. We're still a tiny bit off center, but in a way that is manageable, right? Because now I see, okay, I actually have to go back the other direction a little bit, which means that probably this here, this offset, isn't even necessary. What we can do is figure out that gap difference is caused by some math of these angles, pretty much. So we need to make this gap smaller and that gap bigger. And we can do that if this piece isn't offset at all, then that whole area is going to be off by a bit, right? See what I'm saying? It's this piece that is the key to exactly where the rest of this is going to go. So what we need is it to just go over a smidge. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if it lines up mostly to the eye and of this arch here, then it's going to work, right? So I think what I can do is take this conveyor, and we're just going to move it almost to be flush, but not quite. And that probably will be enough. So I'm going to get rid of these pieces here. There we go. And now we're going to make the next conveyor. And instead of being like, it was like this, it's going to be just a little bit over. There we go, just like that. And now we can get rid of this. Oh no, I actually didn't need to get rid of that. That's fine. And that should work. Let me repair my hammer and figure it out. Here we have our arch. Although now this looks kind of nasty. Tragic, right? No matter what you do. It was all nice before. Can I work around that? I guess I could build around the conveyor. Because now I'm bothered by this, you know? How OCD am I being right now? But that was one of the things, is to be able to like see the conveyor functioning, right? And the way it is like this, that part looks all messed up. And it's also further in, right? So, I think I'm just gonna make it look offset in the output. I'd rather have that than this spot over here. Yeah, right? We need an automated sawmill. Good idea. Alright, so here, yeah, right now we have a sawmill basically that works in, what, 1 meter increments. Which in real life would be like, I don't know, I feel like not super useful. Actually, maybe they do work that way. I don't even know, to be honest. I don't know much about sawmills. Okay, so that goes in. And so the main difference from before is that we made this 3 of these sections and then go up. That was the main change I made. And its roof goes up. Yeah, there we go. And then that is just not lined up, right? But what if we kept it going? Would it then line up with the arch? Like if I added the full piece here. and then I lined it up there. Would that work? Hey! Well, it's not perfect, but it's definitely better. Definitely better than the previous thing. You know, I think I'm just gonna accept that for now. Because now everything's lined up better in the other end of it. Because the main reason we were even here in the first place is because in that spot, there was an overlap of the belt, which causes problems later on. And now you see we have our conveyor. And it's still a little bit, you know, this window should be a little bit over. Really, like ideally the window's like right here. See what I'm saying? So that we see more of the conveyor. Mr. Blob, don't poison me. So I'll just rework this window later. Obviously, it's like aligned all odd and that kind of thing. But that's the general idea. We can look at the conveyor. This thing's here. That outputs down onto this thing. I guess just for aesthetics here, this area can just clip. This is going to be fixed later. Because I'll probably move that whole storage area, but for now, that looks reasonable, I'd say. It's not perfectly centered, but it's not so obvious that it's not perfectly centered. Whereas before it was super obvious. It's mostly because of this gap right there. Alright. I guess I can work around that, actually. Oh, wait, is it actually centered? I just realized something. It might actually be centered. It's just that these pieces are on a different axis, right? So basically, I should be able to do it this way. Hey! Yeah, it's still the same kind of thing, but that's fine. Alright. So we have that area. Our next step then is to make the build splitters and make sure that we put them in the right locations and without placing them one by one. Basically, I was placing it and removing a previous one, and doing that causes problems. So here we want one fill unit to the side. Oh no, we'll just line it up to the chest. That's right. So let's go sit on the chest. And the splitter was right there. So I should just be able to do that. Hey! Nice. There we go. And now I can just do the same thing. The chest was right here. Let's line the splitter up. It looks like... it's either one of those pieces, huh? So this chest wasn't lined up. And it's better that it's a little bit further away. So we're going to go with this one right here. Alright. And now we can actually test this again. Because I need to make sure that the actual storage of the metal doesn't interfere with the sorting, right? So we're going to need to pick up a couple of these nonsensical things here. And let's take just the stuff that we're going to have sorted. So we're going to sort out the iron scraps and the metal bars. And let's have this one sort metal bars. And this next one sort iron scraps. And in theory, they'll just dump them down right there. And this will dump stuff down right here. Let's move this bell a little bit. There we go. I can build another bell just with 3 of these, which we have the stuff for. So we're going to go for a new center spot between these. Let me just keep the pattern going here. I'm trying to imagine what the rest of this will look like, because we're getting closer to like the actual organized area, even though it doesn't look like it. So I'm trying to keep in mind, because I won't keep rebuilding stuff over and over. It's getting to the point where it's in its almost finished state. So our builder's bell here is going to actually go a little bit in front. So we place our first 2, and then this one determines the actual spot. So we're going to go with that. Boom. And now it's easier to strike. Before it was kind of over to the side a little bit. So obviously this stuff is in the way, but none of this is going to be here. This is all just like a temporary workbench staging area, right? Because it'll actually be up here. So to move forward from this point, we need to test the conveyor. So I'm gonna chuck some stuff onto it. Looks like we have a bunch of coal on the conveyor already. So why don't I I'm gonna fill all of these up because the conveyor's already loaded specifically with iron bars and coal. There actually aren't that many iron scraps. So let's take the coal, in this case, here we go, here's some coal. We just need one piece, and we're gonna change this here with an iron scraps thing instead. Makes sense? Oop. If I stop jumping around like a lunatic. I need some of those jump fall potions. No, not that one. This one we're replacing. There we go. And again, I still haven't determined that you need one, but I think you can just put any amount in. I just do one out of habit. Alright, so now we can turn the conveyor on. Oh, wait, that shouldn't happen. Curious. Okay. Normally, if you turn off build mode, then turning this on turns off build mode. But something's being weird right now, and it might be because of what Val was saying. That somewhere on the server, yeah, like right now this isn't working. So I'm assuming something weird is happening because somewhere on the server there are a lot of oozes. That definitely isn't completely normal. Let's see. If I equip, I get the animation, but for some reason this is not working properly anymore. Let's try something out. I've set this up, so I'm gonna log out and then just log back in. By the way, Path of Magic is free for anybody to try out. It is a heavily modified edition of Valheim, but you don't need any mods to try it. And if you like games like Dark Souls, and you like exploring, but you also really like the building in Valheim, then that's sort of what I go for with Path of Magic. It's a version of Valheim that's much more dangerous, but also much more rewarding and much more unpredictable. So if you want to start, honestly, I think the best way to start is by actually like joining the Discord and talking a little bit first, learning a little bit about the mechanics, maybe joining once so you can see what the path itself is like. Because there is a lot to learn. Like, it's not just like one or two things are changed about Path of Magic. Like, most of the things you're used to in Valheim have been influenced or altered in some way. But reading all about it takes so long that you may as well just try playing. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Let's see if it works now. We turn it on. Yeah, something is happening with EWP, and I have a feeling it has to do with what Bao was talking about. So maybe now I'm forced into figuring that out. Let's see. Alright, so there are loads of tar oozes. Okay, I get it. So, yeah, Bao sent this screenshot. I'll show it. 1 second. Which might have something to do with the problem, but you can see that something happened, and the oozes replicate themselves. Not the oozes, sorry, the tar blobs in the plains. They are creating an issue. So I think maybe this is running so much, or something has happened with the data for the script itself. So let's see. Constevs asks, is it okay to build a boar farm in the meadows by the camp somewhere? And you're welcome to try, but you should be warned that basically on Path of Magic, there's mechanics that make it very hard to keep large herds of animals. And the reason for that is because they're very lag intensive. So you'll start having things happen, basically. I'll just leave it at that. You can try, and you're not gonna get in trouble by trying. But don't be surprised if you find it more challenging than normal to keep, let's say, 10 boar alive. I'm not like outright against things. The problem is in the past, we had boar farmers and these things, and basically people don't use them. They're not that useful to other players in the long run, and they make a lot of lag. So that's why in general I made the mechanics so that players can't even produce that situation as easily. But I also would learn, if you try and make a boar farm and you're able to, and you tell me what that experience is like that's useful for me. So pretty much if you're interested, try it out. But you've been warned, it's not going to be as easy as what you're used to. You have to pay a lot of attention, and sometimes in the chat, you'll get a message that's like, something is slithering near, like, your boars, basically. It'll say player name, so it'll say the player's names, boars, and then you have like 20 seconds to get to where they are, and if you don't, a predator kills all of your stuff. So you have to like see the message, go to where it is, and then kill the predator. Otherwise, it kills your boar and stops them from reproducing. So, that's the answer to your question. Best of luck. You're welcome to try it. But now you've been warned that it won't be so simple. What I need to do now is do a little bit of debugging, because this isn't working. So the first thing to do when something in EWP isn't working is you need to go into the console of your server, like your server host. So I'm just logging into mine, and then I'll show you what the log looks like. Because probably because of what Val showed me, I would assume some kind of data is not loading properly, and it's causing basically way too much stuff to spawn, which is then causing the data that this conveyor looks at to not work properly. So let's see, we are in the console here. I guess now I can show you my desktop. Ah, yeah, here we go. Look at this. We have a whole bunch of errors here, which has broken EWP, basically. So what I'm trying to figure out is what's going on with this, which can be tricky to figure out, right? Because, I mean, we see all of these errors, but what does this mean? Well, let's see if we can find. Sometimes it'll say like on line this or on line that, basically. Looks like there's one somewhere, but it's on the web page, not on here. So for now, this log has shown us that basically things are not okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on to the debugging character. So we're going to quit here. The scene will go black for the most part because Valheim's not there, but you should continue to hear my voice. So now I need to reopen Valheim, but with the dev commands enabled, because when I play on LabRat, I don't have them enabled. Otherwise, it's hard for me to get out of that development mode. So now we're relaunching, but we have dev mode enabled. Let's see. Constev says, I got it. If the predator cannot fly, then it's doable. Yeah, I don't think any of the predators are flying. There are things like the Seeker Brood, that little like baby thing, the larva. That's one of them. There's a wolf. And a bat. Oh no, one of them is a bat. Yeah. Yeah. One of them can fly. But it's I encourage you to play and then see how it goes when you play, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of mechanical changes compared to the Valheim people are used to. So sometimes if you try and do something that's useful in normal Valheim, it's like irrelevant in Path of Magic because there's like mechanics allowing you to do something differently in the first place. So yeah, just in general, it's good to play it and then do things based on the needs that you find while you're actually playing. If you think about what you need in Valheim, you're probably going to underestimate how many changes there are to Path of Magic, I would assume. Alright, so here we are back, and luckily Bal has already informed me of the offending monster. So what I need to do is do objects count and then blob tar, and if we get an obscene number, which we did, 39,000, well, that probably has something to do with it. So what we're gonna try and do is we're going to remove these tar blobs. The problem though is that in doing this, we can basically disconnect the server if we try and remove too much stuff at once when somebody's there. It's very weird, to be honest, because like I remove millions of things from the game world before with no problems. Every time I reset the charred fortresses, I do that. But if a player's next to the stuff when that happens, the server really doesn't like it. So you have to be a bit careful. In this case, I think I'm the only one online, so it's probably fine. But what we're gonna do is show you something else that you can do called chance. So we're gonna remove roughly a third of these things instead of removing all of them. And then we're just gonna wait, because you see what's going on? The server is like, alright, I don't know if I can handle removing all of those things. And so now it's trying to remove all 12,000 of them. And we get to see, does it crash or disconnect us, or does it just hang for a bit? But you can imagine how I only tried to remove a third of them. So if a third of them is causing that problem, well, you know, we'll have to see what happens. So now I tried to remove those, and I can go back into the log and basically see if the flow of the errors changed. And so we can see that we got the removed 12,246 thing, but then the console ends there. So it's probably still hung or it crashed. So I'll have to give it another minute and then see what happens. And this is pretty much the only way, by the way, that you can break things with EWP. It's when you do something that causes an infinite loop to happen. Because then, yeah, the server basically will end up crashing. But in this case, I'm not entirely sure what triggered the loop in the first place, because I didn't purposefully change anything. And as we can see, because I was able to enter the password, that means that I just got kicked. The server hung for long enough that it kicked off the players, but it didn't actually crash, because when the server crashes, you can't even get to the password screen. So here we are. We are back in place here. And what we're going to do again is an objects count blob tar. And we should get a smaller number. There we go, a smaller number. So because the server hung there and it didn't crash, what I'm going to do is objects remove blob tar. And we're just going to get rid of all of them, which is definitely going to kick me off the server because the previous amount did. But probably because the server survived, it'll probably be all right. So then when we log back in, we should be able to clear whatever was going on. I'm still not sure why the tar blob situation is occurring, in all honesty. The only thing I can assume is that something happened with the data, so then when it tried to learn, or when it tried to load the data that happened. Let's see, and I'll show you back what the situation we're addressing. So this is some kind of so we are working on this problem. I have to figure out why it happened, but this kind of issue can occur if you try and load data and the data fails. It's like, it basically thinks, okay, I'm gonna load infinity instead, right? So, probably it was something like that, but for now, let's see if we can just remove the tar blobs from the world. Oh, well in this case I know what it is. It's like meme scripting. So it's not like a mod doing something different, if that makes sense. Like, I probably have a typo somewhere, but the typo didn't show itself until a player loaded something. So the first step is to remove the tar blobs so that there are none in the world. And then I go to a special area and I spawn a tar blob and I observe what it does. So here, for example, we see that the world has been successfully purged of the tar blobs. So now what I do is I go to the test island, this place here. And this is, I don't know if I've ever shown this to anyone publicly, but this is like some crazy nonsensical place where I just do random nonsense that I need to. So that's why like none of this makes any sense. There's all sorts of craziness everywhere. That's exactly what's going on. So now let's spawn tar blob. Oh no, it's spawn blob tar. And basically, the issue is more prominent with strong ones. So, oh, actually, you can already tell that's not working, because when I spawn this, it should be replaced with like a 2-star one. So I actually need to reactivate the layer here. This is all nonsense because this is a dev character, so it doesn't matter. So what I need to do is look back at the log here, the server log, to see if clearing the tar blobs did anything. Okay. Yeah, there's no more errors anymore. And everything, these things are all functioning. Interesting. So why? Oh, I'm a player, of course. So the growth isn't getting replaced. Okay, but it is actually working. All right, so in theory, here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna spawn the blob tar, a level 3 or a 2-star one. And then we're also gonna spawn something for it to fight that has a lot of health. So maybe like we could just do like a 1-star troll. Okay. Blob teleported itself. That is fine. But then when it dies, what happens? Okay. Well, dang, that blob has a very powerful poison attack. But aside from that, now let's look in the log. Anything in the log? We see the commands that I just did. But aside from that, nothing. It looks fine. Looks like it's not a problem. Very interesting. So that means... that probably something just broke at that exact moment, I would assume. Let's try being a bit more... Oh, Bao was far away from it, so maybe if I went spawn, blob, tar, and then it's, let's do a bunch of them, like 10 of them, and have them fight other trolls, like spawn, troll, a 2-star troll. So they're using their attacks, right? That's normal. Let's get a bit out of the way here, just in case it's... Oh no, I think I understand now. It's the teleporting mechanic interacting with the player spawn. No, the increase. I think I understand. Yeah, because when the mobs teleport, it moves the mob, but as far as the game's concerned, I think it deletes the mob and then recreates it. If that's true, then I can kill all of these, and I can spawn 3 blobs that are all level 1. And then I can just spawn like a normal monster. Like, let's spawn a couple Greylings so they get ganked really quickly. But the things attack, we're gonna spawn 10 of them. And now we're gonna go away because there's a check for the player. So in theory, the error that Bal encounters comes from a tar blob teleporting, and then when it teleports, it actually creates a new tar blob. But in this case, that is not occurring. So I'm honestly not sure what happened to Bao. I'll have to ask him to log back in and do the same thing and see if it happens. Because nothing's happening here that's out of the ordinary. We definitely don't have like an infinite loop or anything. And the console seems fine. So I guess the final test of this is actually to just log back on to LabRat. And then if the actual conveyor works, then everything's fine. So let's see what happened there. And by the way, this is not typical at all. Like, EWP is really, really reliable. When this kind of thing happens, it's not that EWP is breaking. It's that I scripted something in a certain way that made it possible to do this. Does that make sense? Because in general, Yera's work is really, really reliable. Like, his modding is more reliable than Iron Gate's code. Like, Iron Gate has loads of inconsistencies, whereas Yera's stuff is quite consistent, and he keeps it updated, and it's more logical. So I've found breakpoints to be more likely to be myself, definitely. And in general, that's a good attitude to have when you're developing. EWP is very reliable, which is one of the reasons I like using it. Like, Path of Magic, when Bogwitch update came out, it was like working, and there were just a couple features that weren't working day 1, and then they started working like day 2 or day 3. Like, that's how it is with EWP. It's in general very reliable. When these things are happening, yeah, exactly. It's the script that does something, exactly. But EWP itself, for the most part, isn't something that just like breaks the server or makes things stop working. That's very unusual. Normally, if EWP messes up, it's like a little circumstance overlooked, where if you do this and then you try and add 6 of these to the line, then it tries to compute everything so it doesn't work. But that kind of stuff is very niche, to be honest. Like, if you're just doing basic things, you're not going to encounter mistakes Sierra made. But if you're like doing really complicated math and then making like whole worlds with rules, maybe you might find a couple and you can tell him and then he'll fix them. He's really awesome that way. So, let's see, moment of truth. This should turn the conveyors on. Hey, and now the conveyors start working. Look at that. It actually was the 40,000 tar blobs causing some kind of craziness to break everything else. Who would have thunk? So now I guess what we were doing is we were gonna test this stuff, right? Because in theory, how is it supposed to be working? One of these is sorting something. Well, that one certainly... alright, something weird's happening there with the iron bars. And then we have this one over here. So it looks like, unfortunately, the containers, these things, are messing it up. Because coal should come out here. And then iron should come out here, right? Ooh. Let me actually see. Yeah. But because that's not happening, I would assume that means that it's the chests right underneath that are causing the problem. And that's something I wanted to look into anyway, basically. It's like looking in the wrong place for the chest. That's my assumption. So, and now it all ends up getting dumped over here. You see what I mean? It ends up not filtering anything. So, probably what we can do is just build these big chests, but over here. So let's take this one apart and this one apart. And that should fix it. So now if we resend that stuff through, it'll get sorted properly. And let's place the chest. I guess we could place it like right here. That's going to be where there's scraps and that kind of thing. What about a designated chest not near a splitter or iron? I guess realistically, this can be our metal. And then this can be our just random things that go there. They can end up getting placed in that, right? And here we can place our metal like that. So now what we're going to do is just toss all of this stuff back onto the conveyor. And in theory, because we removed the container that was causing the problem, then it'll start sorting everything perfectly. Because if you saw earlier in the episode, it was sorting like a champ. So let's just make a bunch of these. I guess I can do it this way. I gotta make sure where I throw lands on the thing here. There we go. Let's see. Constev says, one question. Why would one need a conveyor? Vanilla doesn't require anything like that. What's the difference here? Ah, well, it's not that one needs a conveyor, my friend. It's that one wants a conveyor. Literally, it's just something I've always wondered, like, what would Valheim be like if it had some kind of conveyor system? And then I said that to Dakar in just like a comment casually when we were talking about something else. And then he literally made a whole working conveyor, and that one was different. Like it was not like, it was a proof of concept, makes sense. So we've continued working on it to make them reliable and more playable, basically. And you're totally right. There is no reason, like in Valheim, that like you have to have a conveyor belt. Like, it's not like that is Valheim's so much better if it just has conveyors. Like, it's not that at all. It's more to do with my personal things, because one of the things that I'm trying to study is building but specifically how to get people who don't normally build to build anyway. Because I have this theory that lots of people don't enjoy Valheim as much as they could because they don't end up getting into building because they identify as not being a builder. So why would they build? They can't build. They're not a builder. But that's all bullshit and nonsense that doesn't matter. It's a really fun part of the game that you can use to hone your own creativity, regardless of what point your creativity is at. So, in general, I'm interested in things that give more depth to the base building experience. And that's where the conveying is coming in. I'm basically doing this to playtest the conveyors so that they are usable and can be useful, but I don't think that conveyors is like some like really important part of Valheim. It's a way for me to like playtest something, and for those of the people who like conveyors, it adds a load of complexity to base building because you can do all sorts of things. Like for those people who like building Grey Dwarf farmers and all of that stuff, I mean, conveyors make a whole new world of farmers possible. But in my experience, yeah, it's not like conveyors are like a critical thing that has to happen. But let's see what's going on here. Are we getting any sorting? Hey, there we go. It's all sorted. Everything's fine. All right, that's good. So that was the main thing we were trying to figure out here. And then there's this thing that's also, looks like it's also outputting iron, or this was just, no, this was from the chest before, I remember. So let's take all of this. Now we know we finally have the basic functionality. We have the outputs all set up. So it's a matter of actually doing the thing that we're meant to do, which is make like a frame here. And the thing I was going to use to frame up is these iron wood poles. These things are so much easier to build with. But I can't really think because of all the nonsense here, and I haven't made a roof, and it's also always dark, and at this point I've been doing like multiple streaming episodes in the fucking swamp, building in the dark, which is like the least interesting thing, pretty much. People hate the swamp for the most part. Like, don't get me wrong, I know some people like building here, but it's not like people are very fond of the swamp in general, you know? And like, this constant rain, does it really need to be 100% rain? Like, couldn't we have like 95% rain? So just one day we get a clear, just once a year, a clear day in the swamp. Is it really that game breaking to be able to see the sky sometimes? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I've been living in the swamp for weeks, so I feel ready to to complain about darkness and wetness. All right, let's get back on track here, though. We have our conveyor set up, and let's see. Ponstev says, I imagine a scripted troll spawner and a conveyor set that produces troll meat pies at the end with no effort. Yeah, right? That's like basically what ends up happening. In this case, like, it doesn't really reduce the effort, as you can tell. So it's like it's more just amusing and comical, because out of all the time I've spent learning how to use these conveyors, I could obviously just go around like boop, and then go to the other side and boop, and then just line them up in a way where I can do that. And that's actually something I used to do. Like, I really enjoy that personally. The hens are calling me. Always being bothered by hens of one kind or another. Hey, ladies! Jeez, one second. I need to give them something. I'll be right back. There we go. Now I am back. Let's see. Constevs asks what I think about Spazzy's streams. Spazzy's streams. I don't actually know a whole lot about other Valheim streamers. I do want to learn more, but personally, the streaming thing is brand new to me. I know a lot more about like just normal YouTube content, not really live streaming. So I honestly didn't pay attention to it at all. This stream that is Valheim related that I watch sometimes is the B-sides. Because I try and like learn from, as far as I know, that's the biggest Valheim stream basically. So that's one I've been looking at. But if there's something you want to share that other people do or that you like or anything, I would love to learn more about it. I have a lot more to learn about live streaming, and even just like the technical side of it has been like the whole past like 2 or 3 weeks. I've been figuring out what to do there, how I feel about live streaming itself, how it can play into my channel, all of this kind of thing. So far, what I've noticed is that it really helps activate the server, basically. Like if you're live streaming on your server, you're more likely to get new players. So from a server health perspective, that's cool. But also, like if you're just live streaming normal stuff, I don't know how well it would work, right? Like at this point, Valheim itself, base Valheim, is an old game, which is ironic because it's not even out yet, but it's doomed to come out as an old game, which is like, I don't know, I find that kind of amusing. So I don't know how to answer your question, but if you give me some more context, I recognize the name Spazzy, so I have loose familiarity, but I haven't been paying a lot of attention. I've also been frustratingly busy these days, so I'm trying to keep that in mind. Although I have a lot I can learn from other people, like really huge quantities of things I can learn. So I'm always like, I'm not a person who feels like I have to either just watch big streams or just watch little streams. I find that there's things to learn from both, basically. Like even if you're watching a stream and no one's watching, like you can learn the qualities that lead to people not watching. You know what I mean? It really depends on the situation. But in general, I guess, yeah, I should mention that why I don't tend to watch Valheim live streams. Like I started to recently because people started live streaming a bit when they're playing on the server. So I'll watch them when they stream to see like how they deal with mechanics and that sort of thing. But it's hard for me to imagine like a normal person who just plays Valheim and likes Valheim. Are there people like that who just watch normal Valheim playthroughs? Like, I mean, I guess so, but I feel like you have to have something different. Like, even if you're just on a big vanilla server, that's still something different, right? Because there's activity, and a lot of other players can't access that kind of thing. They can't access a world that's active. So it's, you know, it's challenging for them to get that. So there are ways to stand out and still be vanilla, you know? But personally, I mean, I think it's way easier to stand out if you make like scripts. You could pretty much make a version of Valheim that's meant to be live streamed because it's so crazy, you know? Like, you could do that. Palm is sort of like that by accident, but it's not like I thought about that in the beginning. Whereas now I understand, like, there's certain things that are great to live stream. Like, people like seeing combat and when things are well lit, you know? But when things are dark and dreary and not well lit, it's like boring for people. So you could make a version of Valheim that tries to remove those circumstances and show more of the interesting ones. Kit Fury says Spazzy is a pretty good channel. I think he's more of a tips channel, if I can remember. Let's see, I'll have to check that out. Spazzy, YouTube, Valheim, Spazzy. I definitely recognize the name. Let's see. Ah, Spazzy Games. Okay, yeah. I don't know why, but for some reason, when you just said Spazzy, I didn't get it. But yeah, I know about this channel. Yeah, because they made a recent video that did pretty well. Honestly, channels like this, they're really good at making videos that lots of Valheim players relate to, that reach loads of people. And that is absolutely something I suck at. Like, I'm really horrible at it. I haven't really learned to do that because a lot of the times the way I make things, I'm catering to, like, not normal Valheim players. Like, I mean, okay, like, let's take Path of Magic, for example. It's a no map, no portal, very hard EWP world, which is like a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of the player base. So, like, people find it interesting, but most people, they don't even, like, know this kind of thing is even possible. So, like, they didn't even know that there is a different version of Valheim they could be interested in. Like, they literally don't even know that they don't know. You know what I mean? So, EWP is still very much, like, a niche thing people don't fully, like, know about. A lot of people don't know about it. I would say most people don't know that EWP is a thing. Like, most Valheim players, maybe like 90% of them. Let's see, I'm gonna check something real quick because I think I'm pretty much ready to clear this part and start actually framing something up here. I wonder though. Kit Fury says, nah, you have a few videos that normal players will find by just looking for normal Valheim stuff. Your lag video is how I found you. Hey, yeah, that's a good point. But so I guess I was being harsh on myself, but it is kind of like true though, that the EWP stuff, it's very niche. So like, I want to expose more people to that, but I haven't really put my finger on how to do it. And the only thing I can think of is that I need to make both kinds of videos. Like, I need to make videos that normal players can watch, and also at the same time I want to be able to be very, very useful as an education resource for that. So I mean, maybe you're explaining that it's already happening that way, which would be great, in which case I need to just keep it up. But I feel like things are missing. Like, for example, a lot of the tutorials I've made are older, and I haven't been making a lot of tutorials, and like, I've been focused on the live streaming, but I can't just live stream, makes sense? I need to balance it so that I'm live streaming, showing things off, but also making more regular tutorials. So I have like a plan for that, basically, which is making all of these short tutorials, not like super short, but I noticed that of the videos I make that are tutorials that reach people, they do tend to reach more people if they're shorter. So the idea is to make like 3 to 7 minute, actually 5-ish minute tutorials about EWP a week, and just keep that coming out consistently so that I can make this like base that put together teaches players all about EWP. I'm starting working on those videos, but the idea is sort of like the tutorials, they, how do I put it? Like, they would attract and have the potential to really grow the channel. Whereas the live streams are really beneficial to people who find out about it and are interested. But the live streams themselves won't reach new players as much, if that makes sense. But it does, it's related, because live streaming also activates the community, you know what I mean? So we'll see. Hey, Constep says, relax JP, you're cool, your server's awesome, the very idea you promote is fantastic. Well, I appreciate that, like genuinely I do. But unfortunately in my personal life, I have spent like 10 years of my life just living life how I want to and developing my skills without being societal. And at this point, I've become not respected in my family and these things. And basically, I have like a couple more months to earn more money from this. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it as much as I do, and I'll have to start doing other things. And I already do other things. Like I have a part-time job I do, but it's really nice. I live in Nicaragua. I don't have to work that a whole lot, so I can pretty much focus on Valheim like full time, you know. But that's why, like, yeah, I have to be honest, I used to be really, really sick. And when I got sick, my mom started supporting me financially a little bit. She would send $400 or $200 a month, or $400, and then that was a long time ago, and that enabled me to do a lot of things. I was able to do my life in Nicaragua and these things. But now, basically, my family's fed up with me, and they don't view what I do as something meaningful. So that's why, like, you can detect that I have stresses. The way my life is perfect. It's what I want. I'm able to help people study game development, and like every day I practice these things, and I'm doing what I need to do to get myself into a position to develop games that I love. I 100% believe that. But the problem is that because I have been getting some support, supplementary support from my family, that's ending. And I've been able to do this because of that support that I'm getting. So that fully ends on, ironically, my birthday on July 1st of this year. And then, like, basically, if I haven't started earning like $200 more a month by then, which is reasonable, I think I can do it. But like, I have to actually, I won't have as much time anymore. And I don't want that to happen. Like, genuinely, I am very happy doing this kind of work. And I lived the old way for a long time. I lived with someone who I took care of, provided for, who didn't really love me, basically, would take advantage of me in these things. But I had a full-time job, and I had the life, you know what I mean? But I found it all to be pointless. I was like, my job is everything. I sit in a car for hours each day. You know, it's just like, it was miserable. Like, honestly miserable. So that's what motivated me to figure other things out and leave the country. But at this point, like, that's the irony, is like, if I wasn't depending on my family in the first place, I would have been fine. And if I hadn't been, like, the ironic thing is I used to earn more money online before I was just doing my own skills and stuff. So I didn't even need it back then. So like, if I had learned to not depend on them, I wouldn't be in this position. And now, because I have a little bit of financial support from them, the fact that they don't believe in what I do with my life is relevant, right? But on the other hand, that's about to end. And then I'll be able to actually just do my own thing because I'll be fully covering everything. And you know, I mean, it's not like realistically, I mean, like, I moved out of my family or my mom's house when I was like 15, 16. And the support thing didn't even start until I was 24. So like, just to give you some perspective, like, I've been living away from family for a long freaking time. Like, at this point, half of my life. So it's not like I'm that close to my family. And that's the ironic thing. That's the thing that's so frustrating. Like, realistically, like, my dad died when I was a kid, and then the rest of my family sort of fucked off because at that point, like, I'm a kid with a dead dad, so to their happy-go-lucky children, it's like this thing that happens. Basically, you're a threat to all the other children's innocence when you're a kid who went through something. So you get isolated even when people want to help you. It's just reality. It's just how it is, right? So it's been an adventure for sure. But it really explains how everything has played out. Because now I'm in a position where, like, I live in a country where I can afford to have a good life by just earning like $1,000 a month. And I've already covered most of that. It's just that there's this $200 deficit pretty much from the support from my family. And the funny thing too is that like my mom, for example, she genuinely believes in me. She is a good person who cares a lot about me. But she's from the past. And in the past, you had to get a college degree, otherwise you're fucked. So she views herself as a failure because she produced a child that doesn't value college education. So even though my mother is very supportive and very loving and says these things, the reality is, you know, I don't end up being supported. And this isn't, I'm not saying this to complain to you guys, because I think if anything, people relate to this. You understand that like when you're trying to make something work with content or like video games in general, or even streaming, like how many of you are supported by your family about that subject? You know, it's just not a thing. Like people are really not supportive unless you're like trying to go to school and be a doctor or whatever. You know, then like, oh, it's great. Everyone loves you. You can go take out a $300,000 loan and then go try and be a doctor and make a 16-year commitment. And oh, you're great. You know what you're doing. You figured your whole life out. You know, it's fucking stupid. Honestly, I just get fed up with it. And that's why I'm able to be this way, because like the people who judge me in these things and the people who live different lives, like, I don't know, I haven't seen that many happy people on this earth, and all of the people who've given me shit, they do not live lives that, like, I feel like, wow, you live a life I want to live. You seem very peaceful, calm, and able to be happy with what's around you. And in general, like, I respect people who are able to respect those around them, especially if someone's being mean to them or, like, not being kind, and then they don't do that back to them. I think that's awesome. Like, our world would be so much better if we just were kinder to each other, even when we didn't need to be. Like, we try and make the world fair. You know, you should only be kind to people who are kind to you, and mean when people are mean, and that's why our world sucks. It's this notion of fairness. It's all silly, really, because what we actually need is just more sympathy from other human beings who might not be our family. And if we all treated each other better, if we didn't wage wars in foreign lands and allow ourselves to say statements that, you know, are dismissive of other people's cultures, often when those very people are listening to us speak and supporting us, you know, it's like we're just full of contradiction and nonsense, and it's quite tragic, to be honest, seeing how that's unfolded. I've just been going on this tangent here, but I'll just roll with it. This has been why I can get emotional in these things, because I would understand if I just sat around like playing video games all day, but I literally don't do that. Like, I don't play games unless I'm making tutorials or scripting or studying something, and like I'm really active and I don't do random frivolous things. So I know like the way I live is actually a way my family would support. But because of the past and because of the way things are, like, me living my best life is a failure to them, even though they're good people. You know, so you can see how that creates a circumstance where, like, I think a lot of people are in that situation where you kind of have to accept, like, even if things work out for you and you get what you want, like, you're not necessarily gonna be accepted. And like for me, that's been a big lesson, is like there's so much time we can waste in life by trying to be accepted by other people, you know? And really, the irony with that is even if you get rich, you're gonna be dismissed because you're rich. And if you're poor, you're gonna be dismissed because you're poor. No matter what you do, you're gonna be judged, and certain kinds of people are not going to accept you. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to what you value. That is what determines whether you're, so to speak, compatible with other people or not. In my case, what I value above all else in life is the ability to put your shit aside and be there for yourself or for another person that you care about. That is the single most important thing. Like, let's say you have a kid, and let's say you have a job. Your kid is having a rough day. They're not feeling well, and they genuinely need you. A success can tell that job, fuck you, and ignore it for a whole day, and be there for the kid. So you can see how, because this is what I value, that means that almost all work is invalid, because we can't live that way, you know? And that's why, like, it's such a conundrum, because I want to live a life where I can care for people when they need it. When when my fiance needs support, I want to be able to just be there for her and not be unavailable because I'm like not even home because I'm working all the time. Like, a lot of the problems in our world come because people weren't there with their kids. So like, when you're not able to be there with someone you care about, especially during their moment of weakness, it's a true tragedy. And for me, I value the life where one can be there for the people one cares about. Whether that's, you know, a kid you have, a lover, yourself, or even like a video game community. Like, in my head, that's what matters. Your career, what other people think of you, how you look, the cleanliness of your facial hair. I don't give two shits about any of that. All that I care about is your ability to be present. And in my life, that's all I care about. Can I be present doing the things I enjoy? And can other people? Because that is the thing that really, really matters. And ironically, if you want to earn a lot of money, you have to change your relationship with money. And if you look at the people who end up learning and earning a bunch of money, they often come from situations where they had the freedom and resources to just do stuff for years without earning anything from it. And that's the true guts of it. If you want a situation different than other people, you have to be willing to tolerate not earning stuff for a long time. And that's something that people, like, they genuinely don't like, that everyone's wanting proof. As I mentioned before, like most of you playing games, I'm sure you've encountered members of your family who disapprove of what you do, or if you've ever tried to make any content with that or anything. It's very unusual to be very supported in that sense. And if you find YouTubers who are doing really well, you can often like just look for their support and you'll find it. They're in a relationship with somebody who believes in them, or is even like working on the channel together, you know, like, or they share stories, right? Like, I saw this one story on YouTube recently, and it was by this streamer, and he was explaining how, like, the reason he got back into streaming was because his mother told him, hey, look, that was something you really loved. I saw you happy. And why don't you try that again? And like, I saw that and it made me cry. Like, even right now, it makes me tear up thinking that there are some people out there in the world who have families who really just want them to be happy. You know, they're not trying to live through them vicariously. And it seems that that's the lot in life most of us have. We come into this world and the people we're born into want more. We're not enough. We're not good enough the way we are, you know? And that causes so many issues, you know? It's really, really ironic how little the modern person knows about just being and being a human. Because we're so convinced that all these other things matter. But can you blame us, you know? Like, all of the emphasis on career. When you go to a party or meet somebody, right? What happens? What do they ask you? When you meet a new person in the West, what's the first thing that always comes to mind? Maybe they'll ask you for your name. Maybe. But there's something that always comes up. What do you do? What do you do? Because all that matters is what you do. and your ability to make a nice image of what you do. Actually, I guess that is what matters. What you actually do doesn't seem to matter that much. It's all about how you talk about it and how it's portrayed, right? And that is why we suffer. Like, we live in this world where everything's so, it's such bullshit. Like, I don't mean to use like swear words or anything, but it honestly is absolute bullshit. And even Valheim is a good game because it's not such bullshit. Like all these other games, they're just so full of all of this repetitive nonsense. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a pain. And they have those same kind of societal problems where the game is super about imagery, and it's like, oh, the game's coming out, and this game that's coming out is the best game. It's got this new feature no one has ever done before, and it's so amazing. You're gonna love it so much. It's so great. It's so great. And then, like, after a certain point, like, why do we keep believing this nonsense? You know, like, I mean, at first I was frustrated with the developers in the gaming scene and everything. But now, at this point, it's more like I'm frustrated with us. You know what I mean? Because we just don't really, I don't know, we don't always seem to pay attention to the right things. So Constev says, you speak like a Buddhist, are you? Well, I can't identify as being a Buddhist, but I definitely agree with Buddhism in general. I was also born in Sri Lanka, so I was born in a Buddhist country, but I haven't like studied Buddhism or anything. I've been exposed to a lot of teachings that have helped me navigate the fact that my dad died when I was a kid and how that changed my life. But I definitely am not a Buddhist. Like, I don't practice Buddhism. I don't identify as that. And if I said that, it would be insulting to people who actually do. Like, I definitely have that attitude, don't get me wrong. Compared to a typical Westerner, I'm straight up, yeah, you could say I'm Buddhist, but I'm not like actually a practicing Buddhist. Makes sense. I don't like meditate with a schedule in these things. I don't practice Hinduism or anything like that. So I know about some of the teachings, and I know the story of the Buddha, and I love these things, and I am very interested in them. But like my fiance, for example, she's way more interested in these things. She listens to them a lot, and that's how I learn about it. Pretty much I hear the videos in the background, and they bleed into my psychology, basically, and like unwind the problems. And it's funny too, because sometimes I feel like she'll listen to something and I don't really know, but then like later something will happen and I'll be like, oh damn, it's like that concept. But really the big thing, I guess, that I do agree with from like Buddhist teachings is this notion that thinking is the problem, not the solution. So in the West, we are very, very, very prone to thinking and saying that thinking is everything. That your ability to think, if you're a good thinker, if you're smart, we value that a lot. Whereas in my practice, in my experience, and matching the Buddhist narrative, it's actually the opposite. Thinking is the origin of all of your problems. And so by slowing your thought down and also your words, you literally gain control over your emotions and you stop being so bothered by everything. But doing that in a modern, hyper-stimulated era is genuinely challenging, in all honesty. Like, genuinely, it's hard to do. Constev says, nah, you misunderstood Buddhism. It's not a religion at all. There's even no deity. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, like I said, I spoke that way because I know that, like, okay, I was born in a country that's Buddhist, and if I were to say to somebody there that I'm Buddhist, it would be a lie. Because, like, in that context, Buddhism isn't not a religion. In a Buddhist country like Sri Lanka, it is absolutely a religion, and you have a lot of the same issues that you have in like Christian countries and Islamic countries. Like, so I get that from the West, from our perspective, Buddhism isn't a religion. It's a way of being. It's spirituality. It's a way of life, so to speak, right? And for me personally, yes, I completely agree with you. But like I mentioned, when you actually go to Buddhist countries in the world, like Buddhism itself can be very conservative sometimes. It's not the same kind of liberal Buddhist vibe that you get in the West from people who study these things. In the actual countries, there's certain values that are very, very strict. Like, they almost seem counter to that philosophy. Like, for example, I can share a story from my mom when we lived in Sri Lanka. Obviously, I was a 1-year-old baby, so I don't remember this. But my mom had a cat, and the cat was very sick. And basically, it was dying, so it was definitely going to die. And she took it to the vet. And in Buddhist countries, they don't put things down for the most part. So, like, if something's dying in the West, then you're pretty much gonna, how do I say, you're going to intervene and kill the animal to reduce its suffering. And I don't have any this or that about that. You know, there's times I would personally do it. There's times I wouldn't. I don't believe in, like, giving dogs painkillers, for example. So if your dog's on painkillers, you're already too far in it in my head. But that being said, you know, it's all separate things, right? So in this case, though, basically my mom takes the cat and it's really ill. It's definitely going to die. And the doctor's like, there's nothing we can do. It's terminal. The cat's going to die. And that's it, because it's a Buddhist country, so like it's literally against their values for them to intervene and kill an animal, because you shouldn't kill anything. Like, you shouldn't willingly kill anything ever in that notion. And personally, like, I agree with that. Everything you kill comes with consequences. So you can get used to killing, but ultimately there's always consequences for that. But what happened in this situation is the doctor's like, yeah, we can't put the animal down. Obviously, their culture, it's not even a thing that much. But then my mom goes out of the hallway, right? And one of the nurses comes up to her, doesn't say anything, and just says, like, gestures to follow me. And then she goes with them and then takes the cat and they put it down. So, like, I think it's a good story. It's a good metaphor. Because it shows that, well, yes, there are, like, cultural values in these things, and there are rules and laws. At the end of the day, people are going to behave how they're going to behave. And, you know, ultimately, when there's things on a piece of paper, it's probably going to end up contradicting itself. Because what you actually have to do is have people, you know, behaving and caring about each other because they actually care about each other, not because they're forced to by some piece of paper. But the reality of these things, obviously, is such that we like to believe that we can make that work. You know what I mean? Ah, that's interesting. So Ken Stev says, not killing anything is not about Buddha. It is from some Hindu branches. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I haven't studied these things that much. I've heard about them, but I'm not like I'm not educated about the history, if that makes sense. And a lot of the things that's why I'm hesitant to say, like, even that I am that way or think that way, because I know that, like, most of the things I do are like my own bastardizations, basically, of Buddhist concepts that I've heard at some point and then made into my own to be useful to get more work done. But, like, if you think about that, I'm using them to get more work done. So, like, it's not exactly what it's supposed to be for, if you know what I mean. Like, most of my application of these things is to clear my own mind so that I can be more creative and so that I can be less distracted. I'm not really, like, trying to end my suffering, if that makes sense. I don't really care that much about ending my own personal suffering because I don't really suffer that much anymore. So it's not on my mind, I guess. It's like basically every time I suffer, there's a clear, obvious reason for it, and it makes sense. And like even the situation that I'm in, where like I have to make something work earlier than I would normally want to. Because with the Valheim channel in general, I would want to just take a long time, you know? Like I would want to take a long time just enjoying things. But that is tricky, you know? It's harder to set it up that way. 1 second, I got distracted. Constev says, nah, let's not waste the stream on philosophy. I'm here to learn about what you do. Damn, I still have to build the dock. Hey, I feel ya. Also though, the streams are about interacting with people who talk about stuff in the chat and also showing off features. So realistically, you guys can ask about anything in the chat and I'll humor it. I might go on a tangent or a rant. Even though it's not necessarily about Valheim, from what I've learned about streaming, the streams themselves are more like radio shows where you want to be as interactive with people as possible, because that's kind of the whole point, you know, like you can send a message and actually like I'll genuinely answer it, right? Whereas if you answer on YouTube, it's not like you're gonna get a voice of the person talking in the YouTube video, you know what I mean? So live streaming, it functions as a way to better connect with the audience and also do some other things that we're trying to do in Path of Magic, right? I think for now, probably my best bet is to redo the flooring so that it's all in a reasonable pattern. Because it's going to be harder for me to work with this later on. So let's take care of it now. And pretty much everything that doesn't have this cross pattern here, everything else is going to go. So it looks like most of this is fine. This looks like it's all lined up. Surprisingly, I don't know when I lined up this whole area over here, but I must have at some point. Ah, no, you're fine. You're fine. Constev says, no, I'm okay with philosophy. I just feel that it might make you feel uncomfortable. No, don't worry. I don't feel uncomfortable about those things. I am generally much more comfortable talking about things than other people are, and I try to be aware of that because it's very easy for me to like just casually talk about death and trauma and all these things and like have very personal experiences, or I can like cry even a little bit. Like earlier when I talked about that guy and his mom like calling him and telling him to get back into the streaming because it was when he was happy, like I can cry about things, and like I'm just like that. I don't find it to be that intense. I'm not like really sad or whatever. I'm an emotional person, but who can talk about very intense things. And I found that that is alienating to other people, especially where I'm from. That people don't really want to hear things that are about uncomfortable stuff. You know what I mean? In general, it's just not what they want, not what they're into. Where does the pattern break here? What's going on? Okay, the pattern... Ah, no, it's just this part. Alright, that's fine. Sorry about that, I got distracted. But yeah, I was pretty much explaining that I have to... If I suddenly stop talking about something, it usually is because I feel like I'm exactly how you said, oh, we can move on because you don't want to make other people uncomfortable. I can easily make other people uncomfortable. So I do tend to get a little oversensitive about that and think that I shouldn't say anything. But it's funny too, because sometimes people like, it's like they're both drawn, the things that I think differently both repel and draw people. So like I've had situations in my personal life where people are like drawn to the very thing that they dislike about me. It's like, what? Because I'm not really a good person to have in your life if you're being very societal, to be honest. Because I'm gonna like convince you that that doesn't matter and that you should just be happy with what you already have. But that's not like, you know, that's not what we're supposed to say. We're supposed to say that you're gonna be happy once you have this successful career, and we live in a meritocracy where once you deserve everything, you'll get it. But obviously, I think that's bullshit, and you should actually just make the best of what you have, and you can find more happiness in what's already there than what isn't there. So maybe we should stop looking so much at what is not there. But obviously, this is the very notion that alienates people. I find that they don't really want to take responsibility. So if you're listening to me in general, I would assume you are a person who maybe feels that way about other people. You know? But maybe this is all just nonsense, and I don't know. I can get lost in the bushes sometimes. Let's see, now I'll read some of your comments. Jake in the bushes says, a dock? Where? Ah, yeah, I wonder where you are. Where you are building that dock. I don't remember, actually. Docks are very cool, though. And then Jake in the bushes says, we should speak from... okay. We should speak from experience, opinions, or facts. Yeah, that's a good statement. In general, it's just better to speak from experience. And it's good to not say things about others. Especially about their physical appearance. It's usually better to just say nothing. Like, you can think you're complimenting them or whatever, but people are so fucked up about their bodies, you should probably just leave it be. There's certain things like that. And I guess it depends on cultural, too. Like, there's certain subjects that are complete taboo in certain places. Right? And, like, we can think in the West we don't have those, but we absolutely do. We have a lot of them. They're just different, you know? Like, in China, maybe you can't talk about the Uyghurs, let's say, or whatever. You can't talk about something like that. But then in the West, we can't talk about our propaganda and the things that we've done. And you can't be anti-Israel, otherwise you are going to be in a lot of trouble and disbanded. Even though the Israeli nation acquired their atomic bombs by stealing them. They stole the uranium from the United States. They also attacked the naval vessels of the United States and killed 34 Marines and tried to sink a ship called the USS Liberty. And we just lie about it. So, like, you know, I'm not going to go into detail about that. My point is that there's always taboo. No matter what culture you live in, no matter how much free speech you think you have, it's always a thing. There are always subjects that are deeply treated as conspiratorial when often they actually are true. I'm not saying they always are. There's a bunch of nonsense conspiracy theories, don't get me wrong. That being said, we take for granted a lot about our life, and the reality is we just are the way we are. We don't have some crazy freedom that other people don't have. We often don't even have the freedoms we think we do have. We're not better than other people. We just are people. And we're not better or worse because we're in this country and they're in that country. You know? That's just how it is. And if you learn to accept these things, then you can live a better life. But you have to also understand that most other people, they don't have the luxuries to expose themselves to the, let's call it, education necessary to learn all these things. So therefore, they're going to continue perpetuating things that outright contradict their values, and they will continue to attack others for doing the very things that they complain about, basically. And the same thing happens in game development. Same thing happens with the Valheim community. Like, Valheim community itself is pretty friendly, right? But then if you actually look at how the Valheim community treats Iron Gate, we're outright cruel. We fail to understand their emotions. We are very often attacking them personally. And if you look at any time they update anything, just look at the comments, and it's a lot of very ungrateful Valheim players complaining about it. So like, I love the game, and I mean, I'm making a whole version of the game that helps try and, oh no, did I just dead zone myself? I'm making a whole version of the game that tries to help manage some of these issues that I've been speaking about, right? But that doesn't mean that I dislike Iron Gate. I think Iron Gate is incredible. And there's really nothing I think they can do to make Valheim different. They have already done what their basic idea is. They view Valheim as a board game. Obviously, I've mentioned that over and over again, how for a server, in the long run, that mentality is hugely problematic. But that's not going to change. That is how they developed Valheim. I understand that, and I accept it. And even though I personally do everything I can to manage it, I don't hold it against Iron Gate. I understand that they have their vision of Valheim. That vision is probably different than what I really like about Valheim. And that's why I have to make a version of Valheim that is more like the way I want it. Because I want things that are different than what Iron Gate wants. And that's okay. Doesn't mean their version of Valheim's bad. If it wasn't for their version of Valheim, I couldn't make this one. So I wouldn't have the version of Valheim that I find to be more fun. And in that way, it was necessary for them to do everything exactly as they did. So really, there's no sense in me getting all fussed about it, is there? Constev says, Jake in the Bushes. Nice. So Jake in the Bushes is Shinui Palm on the Valheim on the Path of Magic server. I know it can be kind of confusing, because everyone has like different names, right? Welcome to our Discord life, I suppose. And he says, I'm Ping. I talked to you yesterday. I took a spot by the shore to the south of the camp. Ah, Constez. I recognize you now. Yeah, I actually thought you were another person who joined a while ago with a name like Constat. But apparently you're not. You're Ping from yesterday. That's cool. That's cool. Then, let's see. I divide my free time between yours and Bundle's Deep North, testing it. Oh, if you want to share anything about that would be really cool. So something Kit Fury just said is, yeah, Iron Gate said that they wanted an ending, but I feel the same way. It doesn't really have to end. Yeah, I mean, realistically, the ending is like, what, swamp? Mountain? Something like that? Like, for most players. Like, the ending is so much further than what most people are actually going to experience, you know? And I'm kind of like that personally. Like, the Deep North, I don't know, like, I kind of was interested in the Ashlands update, and then I saw what happened when it came out, and it made me not really care about any Iron Gate updates anymore, because it's sort of like the end of the game, or even the middle of the game, pretty much doesn't matter. Like, if you actually care about reaching people, the part of the game that is the core of the Valheim experience that reached so many people that they love is the gameplay loop of the first 3 biomes of the game. That's it. Everything else is extra. It's not part of that core gameplay loop. So basically what happened is they made a progression loop that doesn't match the progression that actually made people interested. So like that again, I can rant about progression in Valheim. But I fundamentally believe that the way the game is set up like a board game makes people not experience the depth that Valheim really has to offer. And to be honest, it might even be true that Iron Gate themselves don't realize that depth, because the fact that it is so consistently like a board game shows that they look at it that way. To them, Valheim is a temporary game that you play for a bit with your friends and it's over. That's what it is to them. You know, to many of us, it's something much more long-lasting, But again, I must remind you that we're talking about a game that doesn't even respawn its dungeons. Like, we respawn the dungeons using mods, but they don't do that, and there's reasons for that. It's not like it's too complicated. It's because fundamentally, like, mechanically, that's how they're dealing with it. Uh-oh. Oh, I see what's gonna happen now. He's gonna get poisoned and die. Or I'm gonna shoot him with this arrow. I guess I have to die? Oh, great. No, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna heal the Verger. I should be able to toss him some food. Is he good? And then, yeah. Hey! Alright, we turned that around. That worked well. Yeah, so you can heal the Diverger if you give them stamina food, right? That was an interesting little... I got distracted there. And so, just so I finish the story, basically, on the server, what happened is this server, before it was Path of Magic, and before it had all this EWP stuff, it was called Path to Ashlands. And it was all about building a long path all the way to Ashlands. At least, that was my idea. I learned a lot from then, and I don't recommend that you have players try and build a path, because it just takes so long that players end up spending a lot of their cognition making this stuff instead of using it. So I've found that there's really, really, really good stuff that comes from building the infrastructure before the player shows up. And I don't mean building the bases, because that's Valheim, is building bases. So you shouldn't be building bases for people, because you're taking away from their experience, which is why it's very hard to build bases that people actually use, because a lot of the Valheim experience is about base building. So in doing your base, you're removing an experience from them and then expecting them to like it. That often ends up happening. But the point is that I found it better to have a pre-built path that funnels the players around and helps make no map, no portal more palatable for most people. That made a big difference. But then the other shocker was Ashlands came out, awesome update cosmetically, really cool. I like the forts. I like how the Ashlands looks. And then the server died. Like, not like everybody stopped playing, but people completely lost interest in Path to Ashlands once Ashlands came out. For the most part. There were some people who made it there, and then I changed things because I had feelings. So I made it so people couldn't even try normally anymore anyway. So I alienated some people by doing that. But basically, it showed me like, shit, okay, Deep North is cool, but it's not gonna fucking matter. Like, really, it doesn't matter. What matters is the base beginning experience. If Valheim isn't reaching more people, it's because something is failing in this experience or in players' perceptions of those first 3 biomes. The Deep North isn't going to do anything to reactivate Valheim, and unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this, I doubt that Valheim becoming 1.0 is going to do anything about it. Because, as I mentioned, Valheim is sort of cursed to release as an old game. Because millions of people have already played it, they've already had a bunch of experiences, and now they have all of these concepts and perceptions that aren't even up to date. Like, people still, for the most part, believe that adjusting terrain causes lag, even though that was patched 2 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying this because I wouldn't expect the Deep North update to change things in the long run. What it does is it brings back some new players, but even Ashlands itself, like, it brought back some new players, but nowhere near the extent that I personally thought was going to happen. I personally thought that a lot of people who played back in the beginning would come back to play, not on my server, just on Valheim in general. I personally believed a lot of people would come back and play Valheim when Ashlands came out. But that didn't happen. There was a peak, a bump of new players and, you know, interest in it. But it wasn't like all the players from before came back. They didn't. So maybe I'm completely wrong, but I have a feeling it'll be the same with Deep North. And ultimately, it's going to be the community that brings Valheim back, not Iron Gate. That's my prediction. And obviously, like, I'm trying to leverage myself and take advantage of this time we're in, where Valheim is underappreciated. It's like I'm making a bet, basically, that while all these other content creators are, like, working on things that a lot of people pay attention to, I can get myself established in a Valheim niche so that if the game ever, you know, takes off more, I'll be in a really beneficial position. But if it doesn't, I can learn to make things work with the few players that Valheim has in the first place. So if things can work for me while Valheim is unpopular, well, then everything's going to be fine. And that's my general mentality. And, like, I think the Deep North is going to be a great update itself. Again, though, like, we still have to deal with the reality that loads of Valheimers just don't really know what Valheim is because they played in the pandemic. And they don't really care that much anymore because they have a very strong conviction that Valheim is what it is, even though it's not. Because their version of Valheim is an outdated version of Valheim that doesn't even exist anymore. But, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Let's see, Kit Fury says, yeah, Valheim is already what it is. It's a game and more like a patch than a release. Yeah, I think in a certain way. Like, I've learned so much, to be honest, from watching Iron Gate and Valheim. Like, oh yeah, don't get me wrong, Con. I love Valheim, I really do. Even the way they played it before, like back with the bugs and stuff. I love Valheim. It's an incredible game, and there's reasons that I play it, and that I believe in them, and I believe in Iron Gate. But also, like, I don't want to be in denial, and I don't want to spread delusion to you guys. Like, all you have to do is just look at them in interviews, look at them talk and these things. I don't know how much longer they'll be interested in Valheim. To be honest, like, they seem burned out. They seem like they want to finish it and, like, move on to other things in their life. So, like, that's sad for me personally, but also, like, I've learned so much from Iron Gate, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not going to happen. But it just looks like they got in over their heads, pretty much, and they earned so much money that it, like, messed everything up for them, so they don't need the money in the same way anymore. And then they were slammed by all of the problems and the way that the community handled Valheim. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if their attitude is like, we want to move on and get this finished, so it's done. I wish that it wasn't like that, but that's what my gut says. And so one of the things I've learned from them is, for like I said, I do the Path of Magic stuff. I'm studying game development, and I've come to find that this is a really good way to test the mechanics I wanted to try out in my own games. But one of the things I've learned from Iron Gate is that you have to be really careful with your game. And if it gets too popular too early, that's going to be a problem. But also, how are you going to manage servers? Like, they don't do anything about servers, and from my perspective, that's a huge, huge missed opportunity. Because, like, when I make my game, I see now, to make it really like a sandbox, you need to make it so there's, like, a way for players to get servers, and the developers develop around that fact, right? Whereas Valheim has been developed like it's a board game. So what I want to do is develop something from the very beginning that is meant for players to make their own versions of that on servers. Because that way, I can allow the Valheim or I could allow the players to make their own versions of the game while also being able to make money from it. Because basically Iron Gate is by far the most likely person who you could get a server from. Does that make sense? So like, let's say there's hundreds of people offering Valheim servers. If Iron Gate offered them directly through the game, through the menus, and had you set them up that way, like, who do you think's gonna get more of the servers? Iron Gate or G-Portal? Obviously, it would be the one that is most convenient and actually made or offered by the developers. And I'm not saying they need to get into server hosting. They would just have a partner who does the server hosting, and then they would get an affiliate link. Like, it's pretty simple. It's not like some big complicated thing. But that's been one of my big lessons from Valheim, is in my own game, I have to design it from the beginning, thinking not just about what modders are gonna do, but how I can make stuff like EWP built into the game itself to make it truly a game that you can play and then make your own customized version of on a server, and the game itself supports you doing that, right? And you can even, like, you could set up your own server if you wanted to. It wouldn't force you to do that. You would also be able to use an official server though, which is easier and, you know, maybe cheaper or whatever. I don't even know. So that's been something that has really helped me out, is just seeing what's happened with Valheim and how one can learn from that and keep it all in mind. So when one makes one's own game, one knows not to make some of the same mistakes. And it's not even mistakes, to be honest. It's like some things aren't even possible. We didn't even know they were possible. But now, because of Valheim, I see, like, what we need is games that are made with the server in mind from the very beginning. Not games that are made and then server functionality is slapped on afterwards, you know? Jake in the Bushes has another comment. Yesterday, I was trying to play Arma Reforger. There's only like 10 128 player servers each. Oh, and each one had a... Oh, shit. This looks bad. Well, I'll read their comments now. Okay, I actually got a little bit sidetracked there, so let's go back to Consteb's comment. We do not believe in magic of human society, but we all want to believe in it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Con. That's a great way to put it. Easiest corpse run ever. Then Jake in the Bushes says, yesterday I was trying to play Arma Reforger. There's only like 10 128 player servers there. Each one had a 50+ queue. I should have jumped in Valheim. I thought I was dropping frames and ended stream. Tried to rejoin and spend the night in queue. Oof. Yeah, that'll do it. Queues are a touchy subject for people. Because on one hand, they seem to actually be a frequent trigger of fond memories, if that makes sense. So like, people, for example, talk nostalgically about World of Warcraft queues. But then, when they were happening, people didn't seem very nostalgic about them. And that I guess is a nod to our dysfunction. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we say one thing and really people make a lot of sense once you stop thinking they're logical. You know, once you understand that people basically babble nonsense all the time and they're getting through their days accidentally saying a bunch of stuff that they regret, but then getting lucky and not having to deal with the consequences. Like, that's how people skate through life, basically. They don't really know how to communicate. We often say things that are like not worded well and really offensive, or like off, like out of the blue. No one asked us and we started sharing our opinion or whatever. You know, like we do that kind of stuff a lot. Us humans. We'd be problematic. Hey, here we go. This is looking better. Now the floor is more even. This is actually functioning. This whole area is more open. And it's just going to be a matter of getting the supplies that we need. That's going to be cool. Kit Fury says, my disappointment in Blizzard is what makes me want to make a game myself. Oh god, we relate. We relate. We relate. We relate. You don't even have to elaborate for me to agree with you there. Blizzard is definitely, yeah, Blizzard. You can just say Blizzard. Jake's just trying to convey some information. You need a conveyor belt, Jake. I'm really glad these things actually work now. Alright, this, while I've been babbling, apparently, I was actually sorting this a little bit. So we can see here, this is like the beginning of it, right? So let's mark our center spot. And I'm just going to build until I run out of, 400 iron, and hey, we have plenty. Okay. Because the idea, at least the title of this stream, was about framing it. So I should actually frame something. I'm struggling to title streams before they happen, to be honest. It's like hard to keep track of. I guess this doesn't have to, I liked it lining up with that before, but the center of mass is, so to speak, more over here. So probably, I think, probably right here can act as the center for now. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're surrounded by so much asymmetry that this is probably all that we need, really. We're gonna try and make one thing that actually, oh, I just spilled tea all over myself, is actually a centerpiece here. And I'm trying to remember, I'm going for like that kind of silhouette, right? So there will be a tower there, and then this will be like a round castle-esque area. And the wool, I think, is going to be here. So this is going to be like an outside courtyard thing, maybe a wooden structure. Whereas this part will be the actual stone structure here. So let's keep using these bars and basically make a circular thing. By using this center point, we're going to save ourselves a lot of headache, because we can line everything up to this framework which we're making, instead of trying to clip everything into the floor and messing that all up, right? Let's see. Now, Constev says, now this stream becomes not just informative, but also funny. Oh, thank you. I'm still working on the humor thing. Sometimes I can be funny, but I tend to be a little too morbid to be funny for a lot of people. So I don't know, maybe morbid people appreciate that, but other people don't. But then Constev says, by the way, are you okay with promoting your server on Steam or other platforms? Yeah, like you can literally, if you want to play on Path of Magic and make content about it, you are free to. You can do whatever you want with it. You can talk about it wherever. You could share any videos I make anywhere. Like, I have no qualms about that. I don't worry about slots on the server because, like, generally there's not 10 people online all at once. And if there is, I've already negotiated everything so I can get it up to 20. I just need it to occur once, and then I'll get it increased. But for now, I haven't had to worry about that. So I've been able to just, like, talk freely about things, and it seems to work, you know? And obviously Path of Magic isn't for everybody, but it seems pretty much if you're interested in the content and you like world building, then Path of Magic is a great place for you to, one, see what's possible, but also to meet other people who are interested in this kind of stuff, because it has become like that. And that's been really cool, like seeing that a lot of you who watch this stream, like you want to make your own world or something, and so you come here for inspiration as well. I think that is really cool, because one of my problems with Valheim for a long time is I didn't really have people I could play with. Like, I had a friend who would play sometimes, but he just wasn't into Valheim really. So it was more about talking to me than playing the game. But like, I'd rather just like talk on the phone in that case, if that makes sense. So for me personally, that wasn't really that nice, because he didn't really care about Valheim. But now it's the complete opposite. Like, we have this whole community of people, and they really love Valheim, and they like learning about Valheim and talking about Valheim. And I don't know, it's just awesome. Yeah, and so Con, you're free to share it as much as you want. And well, honestly, if you want, I know you've been talking about a dock in a different place, but I actually need a dock here. I don't know if you have any interest in getting all the way to this spot, but basically this is like an iron factory, and it's pretty much the place on the server that you can make iron the fastest. So like, I want to make it possible for a player to come with a boat and land at the port and then fill it up with iron and then leave. So we need, like, literally this spot right here. It's perfect for a dock. So if anyone wants to work on that here, you know, and a dock that accommodates, you know, carts moving around and iron, that's not like too complicated, nothing crazy fancy, you know. If you want to work on something like that here, that would be awesome. So I've been working on this factory for a while, and I keep thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna finish it. But then, you know, like, at this point, what is this, the 4th stream about framing, and I finally have some frame up? Welcome, by the way, Mango. I saw there was another player who's new to the server, I think. I saw the name 2 days ago? Something like that? I try and recognize the names, but sometimes it's like other existing people, just with a different character name. So you never really know. So it's always better to ask, but here we are. This is we're getting the frame for our circle. So we're going out approximately 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And it's not gonna look like this. This is just how we're making it so that we can basically set up the circular stone structure itself. So I'm gonna make this to space everything out, and then I'm gonna build like walls and stuff where we need the things to be. But it looks like it probably needs to be a little bit further away. Can I even hurt this guy? You sucker. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So when you die, sometimes your ghosts come back. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, docks are really fun, to be honest. I'm glad you like building them. They're also like practically useful, especially on the no map world. There's often times where players get lost and then they come across someone's old dock, and then they're able to figure out where they are because of that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have 6 of these. And I can't put the stone over this, but I think instead of making like a wall, I want to keep the accessibility of these here. So I'm gonna extend the stone out a little bit, probably. So I think that means that this area here, that's gonna be the inside perimeter of our stone. That way we can add some space for these, and the rest of it should work all right. Let's see, I'm in the make a new hammer every time you run out mode. We need to make each of these 6, right? So 2, 4, 6. That one's already. This one's already at 6, right? 2, 4, 6. Yep. And then 2, 4. Here we go. This is where I left off. So now I'm just gonna wrap around and get most of this done. Oop, nope. Sorry, most of this done, meaning most of this circle done here. Because this area, we're probably just gonna ignore these parts, because there's already some like basic structure here, right? So pretty much, we'll have it go out from here, although maybe it actually needs to be 7 units because of this part over here. I guess we can make that work. Yeah, it looks like we would have to do that anyway, because these are gonna get clipped otherwise, and then they won't be able to smoke. And we need to make sure that they can actually smoke for the ventilation. And I'll also have to figure out the concentric circle thing here, because it's not necessarily clear exactly how far we need to go here. And you have to like know the right pieces to put in so that the angles work out right. But that, as long as each one of these has 7 pieces, then we should be good. So let's make it possible for us to more easily check. Let's see. Jake in the bushes says, hey, I kept getting tattled on in the Mistlands. I don't think it was Odin. What mechanic am I oblivious to? So if you're using magic and you cast a magic fireball and it goes more than 70 meters away from the player and explodes, then you get a tattle. And that's just like a way to make magic more dangerous, pretty much. So if you shoot a fireball off into the distance, Path of Magic is basically like, how dare you shoot fire off into the distance at random, here's a punishment. But it's not clear that that's why you're getting the tattle. So there's no way for you to know that. But I would assume if you're getting tattled on and there's no Odin notifier, that that's why. It was actually to counter a kind of griefing, not griefing, but basically enemy AI has a dead zone. So like, you see how there's stuff over there? Let's say that I could see the enemies now. They wouldn't behave. But there's this spot where they're too far away to behave, but not far away enough to unregister. So the enemy's there, and you can just shoot it with magic, and it won't react, and you can kill it. So all I did was basically counter that. Yeah, and if you got tattled on in the meadows for... Oh, and you were... Okay, so Jake says that he was shooting fireballs at Zhals, which, yes, would result in if you miss and the fireball goes off into the distance, then yeah, it's gonna aggro everything, which also explains why Baliog's Zhao fight looked so insane. But then Constev says, I got tattled on in the meadows for just building. Yeah, so that is actually Odin. And Odin is very harsh in Path of Magic. Instead of just showing up randomly, he shows up and then tattles on. And basically, Odin will spawn around the player, and normally that's all that happens. He just spawns around the player. But on Path of Magic, when he spawns, there's a chance for him to do something. He could give you some loot, he could shroud you in temporary mist, or he could tattle on you. And if he tattles on you, then basically everything around you gets aggroed to you. But if you run away before the enemies notice, it's not like they know you're there. They basically hear a noise at that location. But you yourself are not like, they don't get forced into the alert state. So you can run away from the tattle, but some of them will re-tattle a couple times. So I think it takes like a minute, and then you can run away and it won't re-tattle. But yeah, the tattling is something, you know, honestly, in the meadows, I don't know. I could turn it off in the meadows, to be honest, because I want, don't get me wrong, I want Path of Magic to be, I almost said frustrating, but obviously I don't actually want it to be frustrating. I was going to say frustratingly dangerous, but for that to really work, you need safety. For like Path of Magic to feel dangerous in the good way, there needs to be safe places to retreat into from the danger. And that's where the meadows comes in. And in general, I want to keep the meadows as safe as possible. So I think I'll disable tattling in the meadows. I guess it depends though. Was it like that problematic? Because, I mean, if you get tattled on in the meadows, but you're next to a black forest, like a troll could come out and try and kill you. And I definitely don't want trolls to be attacking players building in the meadows. So probably I'll just disable it. But either way, I actually have to end the stream now. I've been going on for a while, so I will head out. And in the next one, we will actually work on the full frame of this. I feel glad that I at least got the frame started and I cleared this area. So now visually, you can sort of imagine, yeah, that whole area is gonna have like a stone wall on the outside. Okay, that's what we're going for. So thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your time, effort, and attention. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching another episode of The Path of Magic. All of the crazy nonsense that you've been seeing so far has been done with Expand World Prefabs. Expand World Prefabs is a fantastic server-side BepInEx mod developed by Yair. And if it wasn't for Yair's hard work, none of this would be possible. So I strongly encourage you to support Yair if you can. And if you're interested in supporting my work, there's two ways that you can do so. By getting your own dedicated Valheim server at Zap Hosting. I've got lots of tutorials showing you how to set everything up, and it doesn't even take that long. All you'll need to do is go to the link in my description, zaphosting.com/jpvalheim. That'll get you set up with the BepInEx server straight away, and then you just need to change a couple config files, and I have all of the information that you need for that. The second way is to support me on Patreon, and you can just check out the link in the description below if you're interested in doing that. I understand that some of you might want to support me, but, you know, you're not going to get a server to do so, so here you go. Now you have a way to do it. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next episode of The Path of Magic. Bye-bye.